During the preparation process for many consecutive days, Jason realized a lot. Every preparation in the past, including the preparation in Jason's previous life, Jason had learned a lot. It is a technical flow that uses physical means, such as violent vibrations, to forcibly control the fusion and reaction between spiritual elements. The reaction speed is very fast. Each preparation step consumes a lot of Jason's physical strength, and the preparation process is also very fast, but now Jason has made great progress in his understanding in the past few days. Every step of the elixir is no longer simply controlled by the technical flow of physical means, nor is it simply controlled by spiritual consciousness. Instead, it perfectly integrates spiritual control and technical flow. Even in some steps, Jason has put aside the use of technical flow and spiritual consciousness to control the reaction of the solution. Instead, he allows the spiritual elements to naturally and slowly merge and change each other, fully exerting the unique effect of each material, and at most only just a little guidance. Jason seemed unhurried in every step of the preparation, like an assembly line worker, calmly performing a task that he had to perform countless times every day. With the addition of the last ingredient in front of him, the elixir that was originally extremely turbid and reacted violently gradually calmed down, and a large number of bubbles emerged from the preparation bottle in front of him. Jason carefully divided the potion in the preparation bottle in front of him into two parts, and then poured all the gold element essence separated from the spiritual element separation liquid into one of the bottles. Boom! A thick golden fog filled the laboratory. Jason's eyes were as calm as a deep pool of water, and he steadily took out a sapphire blue fruit from his body with his right hand. This sapphire blue fruit is the violent spirit fruit that Jason snatched in Giant Tower Town a few months ago. With a false slash with his right hand, the entire violent spirit fruit was also divided into two parts, and then Jason poured them into two bottles of spiritual potion one by one. Violent reactions reacted sharply in the two preparation bottles in the quiet laboratory. Two bubbles, one gold and one blue, rose up in the two preparation bottles, and a faint medicinal fragrance filled them for ordinary spiritual beings. For the pharmacist or Jason in the past, at this point, the preparation of the spiritual potion has been completely completed, but at this moment, Jason did not make any move, but slowly closed his eyes. Countless spiritual consciousnesses are like invisible golden filaments floating in the water, floating naturally throughout the laboratory. In vain, the filaments of spiritual consciousness suddenly rioted like a school of frightened fish in the ocean. Like living creatures, they pierced into the two bottles in front of Jason like lightning. Magic potion. The spiritual elements in the already extremely calm spiritual potion slowly blended together again at a speed that was almost imperceptible to spiritual consciousness. In this world, every inch of air is filled with spiritual elements of various attributes, but at this moment, under the protection of Jason's spiritual consciousness, all the free spiritual elements around the two bottles of spiritual potions were swept away, forming the vacuum isolation zone of the spiritual element. Slowly, faint rays of spiritual power emerged on the surface of Jason's body, constantly swallowing, and then quickly dissipated in the air. If this scene were to be seen by other spiritual masters, they would probably be shocked. This kind of breathing of spiritual power on the body surface is a characteristic that only third-level spiritual masters can have. But Jason, a high-level spiritual master, but he did it unexpectedly. Time passed slowly, and I don't know how long it took. Suddenly, two rays of light, one gold and one blue, flashed on the two bottles of elixir. Jason's eyes suddenly opened at the same time. A ray of light passed by, and a smile appeared on the corner of Jason's mouth. These two bottles of elixir are finally completely prepared. Putting away the two bottles of elixir, Jason let out a long breath. Looking at the two bottles of crystal clear elixir in front of him, Jason's eyes showed a glimmer of satisfaction. In terms of grade, these two bottles of elixir can be regarded as 6th-level high-grade elixir. What makes Jason even more gratified is that each of these two bottles of elixir reached perfection. Just over a month ago, when Jason was treating the eldest prince in the palace and preparing 5th-level high-grade sacred potions, he would be sweating profusely from exhaustion, and the quality could only be considered excellent. But now, after Jason was promoted to a senior spiritual warrior, although his physical strength was only at the low level of the 6th level, he was able to naturally prepare the spiritual elixir that reached the 6th level, and there was no trace of fatigue on his face. What's more important is that these 6th-level high-grade elixirs are still in perfect condition. All of this is because Jason realized the true meaning of the spiritual potion and completely integrated the spiritual consciousness stream and the technical stream to reach the height. At this moment, a mysterious door seemed to burst open in Jason's mind, and countless loud sounds lingered. Behind the door, under the bright light, was a glorious road to become a 10th-level medicine god. For the first time, Jason felt confident in his ability to become a 10th-level medicine god, instead of the simple ambition he had before. This spiritual potion contains the violent spirit fruit, which has the effect of the violent spirit fruit. After taking it, a 5th-level sect spiritual master can be promoted to a 6th-level spiritual master. Let's call it the spiritual master potion. Jason putting the elixir in his arms, he opened the door and walked out of the laboratory. In the sky, a hazy light and shadow awakened between heaven and earth, and a red sun struggled to show its head on the horizon. Unknowingly, Jason had been preparing the whole night in the laboratory. Father. Jason walked out of the laboratory and did not go to rest. Instead, he came to the room where Renaud was and woke up Renaud. A moment later, the door to the room creaked open, and old Renaud walked out of the room with a smile on his face. Jason, why are you so early? What's going on today? After Jason returned to the family, old Renaud has been in a good mood recently, and the wrinkles on his face seem to have diminished a lot, but his gray hair still shows his age. Father, come with me. I once said that I will definitely help you regain your strength, and today I will fulfill my promise. What? A trace of surprise appeared on Renaud's face. Jason, is what you said true? Can my strength really be restored? In a small room in Jason's courtyard, old Renaud, soaked in a bucket filled with red liquid, had excited eyes and doubt in his tone. Asked. These red liquids are the large amounts of bodybuilding spiritual liquid prepared by Jason. They are different from the bodybuilding spiritual liquid Jason used before he was promoted to a spiritual disciple. The materials used to prepare these bodybuilding spiritual liquids are definitely not the simple ones before. Materials are comparable. Renaud, who was soaked in the liquid, still had a look of disbelief on his face. Renaud, who was once hailed as the #1 genius in his family and became a 6th-level spiritual master at the age of 33, was just like Wayne, who had his power sealed. The kind of loss and pain he endured in his heart was unimaginable to ordinary people. It was like the emperor, who had more than 10,000 people, became a lowly beggar overnight. This gap was enough to drive ordinary people crazy. Moreover, Renaud and Wayne are different. Wayne's power has only been sealed. If Wayne can still recover his strength, then Renaud, whose meridians have been destroyed, cannot recover at all based on the spiritual technology of this era. Regarding Jason's words about recovering his strength, Renaud just smiled in his heart at that time. In his heart, he just thought that Jason's strength was not enough, and he could not understand that he could not recover at all with all his meridians. But in his heart, when Jason pulled him and told him that he could regain his strength, Renaud, a person who had experienced ups and downs in life, was inevitably shocked. At this moment, Renaud was like a child, constantly doubting. He knew it was impossible, but he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart, but he was afraid that the glimmer of hope would suddenly be shattered. This conflicting mood made Renaud, who had always been calm, feel extremely uneasy at the moment. Father, get ready. After getting everything ready, Jason said solemnly. Renaud took a deep breath, looked at the confident Jason in front of him, nodded, and a trace of determination appeared on his face. His originally extremely anxious heart suddenly calmed down at this moment. Regardless of whether what Jason said about being able to restore his strength was true or not, all he had to do now was cooperate with Jason well. If he didn't succeed, he wouldn't have lost anything, but once he succeeded, Renaud shook his head. Right now, he didn't dare to imagine that it would really succeed. As the saying goes, the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Jason nodded and sat down cross-legged in front of Renaud, with their palms touching each other. "Father, I'm going to start," Jason said calmly. The power of the senior spiritual warrior in his body quickly boiled under Jason's operation. Waves of powerful spiritual power, under Jason's control, slowly followed Jason's palm and entered into Renaud's palm. The treatment method formulated by Jason is actually very simple. That is to use the spiritual power in his body to open up all the meridians that have been blocked in Renaud's body after being decommissioned, and then use the healing effect of the bodybuilding spirit liquid to open up all the meridians that have been blocked and destroyed. The meridians gathered together again. As Jason's spiritual power entered Renaud's body, Jason's spiritual power and spiritual consciousness soon sensed Renaud's body. Just as Jason imagined, there were no meridians in Renaud's body at this moment. Where all the meridians are located, there are fragments of blocked and damaged meridians. "Drink!" A loud shout burst out from Jason's mouth. Jason used all his spiritual power in his body and rushed towards the meridians in Renaud's palm. Boom! Like a tsunami attack, the wave of spiritual power in Jason's body suddenly rushed into Renaud's damaged meridians. "Huh!" Renaud grunted, and the meridians in his palm burst open instantly. Big beads of sweat rolled down his forehead like rain, but he bit his lips and remained silent. "Father, be patient," Jason said in a low voice, summoning up all his strength, and once again let the spiritual power rush into his body. Pa, 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 a crackling sound like fried soybeans came from Renaud's arms, and intense pain was like thousands of small sharp knives stabbing and slashing in his arms. It also felt like it was coming out of the palms of Jason's hands. He picked up red-hot iron wires and pierced his arm in an instant. The burning melted the meridians and flesh in his arm and continued to spread forward. The unbearable pain made Renaud groan continuously. His face turned extremely pale in an instant, and his lips were bitten open at some point. Blood slid down the corners of Renaud's mouth, but the fire coming from his arm in front of the burning pain, he didn't feel anything at all. But the next scene filled Renaud with shock. Just when he felt extremely painful in his arms and could hardly feel the existence of his arms, there seemed to be a trace of red air entering him in the barrel. His body happily came to the location of his broken meridians. Wherever the red air flow went, there was a trace of warmth and coolness on the arm that was originally burning and painful. Immediately, the broken meridians that Jason had opened did not become clogged again, but were nourished by the red air flow, repaired it very quickly, and in a moment, the rudiments of the meridians between the arms were formed. This Renaud murmured meaninglessly, his eyes bursting with indescribable light. He never thought that the meridians he had destroyed for nearly 20 years could be reformed, although now it was still just a prototype, but it still brought an indescribable shock to Renaud. "Father, you have to hold back, this is just the beginning." Jason's face was extremely solemn. Renaud is currently a 6th-level spiritual master. After his strength was disabled, all the meridians from the 1st to the 6th level in his body were destroyed. Jason needed to slowly break through it bit by bit and then reshape it. Now the meridians on both arms it's just a small beginning. But this kind of pain of broken meridians and reunion of flesh and blood is not something that ordinary people can bear. "Haha, son, come on, this pain is nothing, just come here." Renaud was extremely happy in his heart and said with a wild smile. He was once a 6th-level spiritual master, and he couldn't be embarrassed in front of his son, and in order to restore his strength, this level of pain is nothing. Jason nodded and controlled the spiritual power in his body. After breaking through the meridians on Renaud's arm, he directly entered Renaud's first-order meridians. Pa, 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 the sound of rupturing meridians came from Renaud's body. Renaud bit his lips tightly. Sweat gathered on Renaud's face and formed a stream. It kept dripping down, but Renault was not even a single cry. Jason closed his eyes, calmed his mind, and constantly controlled his spiritual power to enter the blocked meridians in Renault's body. Like a warrior opening up territories, he continued to surge forward with an indomitable momentum. When Jason controlled his spiritual power to enter Renault's third-level meridians, Renault couldn't bear it anymore and let out a painful roar. A trace of blood appeared on Renault's gums. Jason could even smell the strong smell of blood in the gas sprayed from his father Reno's mouth. The pain of rupturing the meridians in the body is no less than being burned or tortured. If that kind of severe pain were placed on an ordinary person, the body's defense mechanism would make that ordinary person faint in an instant. In fact, although Renault he was once a 6th-level spiritual master. Under such huge pain, Renault should have fainted long ago. However, if Renault faints, then the opening of the meridians this time will be considered a failure. The next time he opens the meridians, it will be much more difficult. The reason why Renault has not fainted now is entirely because of Jason's bodybuilding spirit liquid in the bucket. A large number of invigorating psychoactive potions are added to it. The clear pain that made him faint and couldn't pass out made Renault's mind even more intense, amplifying the pain to a clearer level. In front of the bucket, Jason's head was covered with sweat and he was breathing heavily. The constant impact on Renault's meridians caused the spiritual power consumption in Jason's body to be extremely huge, and as Jason's spiritual power moved around Renault every inch deeper into the meridians, the spiritual power consumed will become greater. Fortunately, Jason was well prepared. When he prepared 20 bottles of spirit-restoring potions for Yenji and the others, Jason himself kept 6 bottles of the best quality spirit-restoring potions and gave one to Grayson and Dick. After that, Jason still had 4 bottles left on him, and in Jason's opinion, he should be able to handle it. As time passed, more and more meridians in Renault's body were opened by Jason, but soon, Jason encountered a huge problem. That is, when Jason's spiritual power rushed to the 4th level of Renault, when it reached the entrance of the meridian, it turned out that it was no longer possible to rush in. The reason why Jason is strong to outsiders is because of his body that is comparable to a 6th-level spiritual master and the power of his spiritual skills, plus the effectiveness of the 9-headed fear phantom demon spirit ring and the golden ring and silver. Because of the python spirit ring. But Jason's actual spiritual power level is actually that of a 2nd-level advanced spiritual warrior. During the battle, this weakness was not very obvious, but now when he charged Renault's meridians, it was greatly reflected. With his 2nd-level advanced spiritual power, being able to break Renault's meridian pulse to the bottom of the 3rd level is already a great success. After feeling that his spiritual power could no longer be stored, Jason quickly took a bottle of 3rd-level mid-grade violent potion that he had prepared in advance. The spiritual power of the 2nd-level advanced spiritual master in Jason's body boiled instantly. Under the influence of the violent potion, it quickly transformed into the spiritual power of the 3rd-level spiritual master. Boom! With a sound, Renault groaned in pain. Jason's spiritual power, which had been stagnant at the entrance of Renault's 4th-order meridian, finally broke through the obstacle again and began to rush through Renault's 4th-order meridian. Painful roars continued to come from Renault's mouth. Renault's eyes had already become extremely red at this moment, and the sweet smell of blood spurted out from Renault's mouth and floated in the air. As time passed little by little, Jason's spiritual power finally came to the entrance of Renault's 5th-level meridian, but this time, the spiritual power that had been enhanced by the violent potion stagnated again, unable to advance half a minute. "Father, you please be patient for a moment." Jason squeezed out a sentence from his mouth, and his whole face turned red. The large amount of spiritual energy consumed caused the meridians in all parts of his body to also transmit. There were bursts of severe pain that was almost bursting. Buzz, a golden spirit ring quickly emerged from Jason's head and floated behind Jason's head. Immediately, the shadow of a golden ring and silver python slowly appeared above Jason's spirit ring. Out. At the same time that the golden ringed silver python appeared, the third-level spiritual power in Jason's body quickly boiled. Countless spiritual powers gathered towards Jason's hands, constantly compressing them, reaching a terrifying level, ready to take off. Jason actually wanted to use the fatal blow skill obtained from the golden and silver python spirit ring to open up the meridians for Renault. You know, a fatal blow is an extremely powerful attack skill. If you are not careful, Renault, who has no spiritual power in his body, may be seriously injured in an instant by this blow. Ah! Jason roared violently. A fatal blow. As Jason shouted, the spiritual power gathered in Jason's arms instantly rushed like a flood bursting through the dam, along the meridians in Renault's body, and rushed straight into the entrance of the fifth-level meridians. Boom! Under the huge spiritual power shock, the entrance to the fifth-level meridians in Renault's body burst open instantly. Renault let out a huge roar of pain, and a mouthful of blood spurted out from Renault's mouth. Puffs of blood mist erupted from everywhere on Renault's body, and countless blood threads snaked on the surface of Renault's body. To Jason's disappointment, the spiritual power he entered into Renault's fifth-level meridians only advanced halfway, and could no longer move forward. The strength is still too low, Jason roared, and the spiritual power in his body gathered again. Fatal blow. There was another loud shout, and Jason's spiritual power once again rushed forward a little in Renault's fifth-level meridian, but when it reached the entrance of the sixth-level meridian, it stopped again. This time, the spiritual power released by Jason was like an athlete after a long-distance run, unable to exert any effort at all. Ah, come on me, Jason roared, roaring, his eyes widening. Fatal blow. Jason once again used a fatal blow, but Renault's sixth-level meridian entrance, like a tough rock, still did not shake. Pa, 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 the sounds of shattering meridians came, and a mouthful of blood spurted out from Jason's mouth. 2 lines of blood snaked down from Jason's nostrils at the same time. A fatal blow is a move that can kill 1,000 enemies and damage oneself 800 times. It will cause great damage to the human body and will make you extremely weak after using it. With Jason's extremely powerful body, it is okay to use it once, but it will be used so many times, and every time, the amount of spiritual power sprayed out must be forcibly suppressed, and the amount of spiritual power entering Renault's body must be controlled, so that the spiritual power cannot damage Renault's body functions. Even though Jason had such a strong body, he also suffered extremely serious injuries. What should I do? What should I do? Jason was completely unaware of his injuries and was thinking of solutions rapidly in his mind. This time the meridians opened up for Renault can be said to have been successful in principle. However, Renault was a 6th-level spiritual master before his strength was abolished. The 6th-level meridians in his body are also extremely damaged. If he stops now, although Renault he has retrained to the level of a 5th-level sect spiritual master, but the damaged meridians at the 6th level will permanently block Renault from becoming a 5th-level senior sect spiritual master. It is generally easier to widen the meridians like this for the first time, but if you want to widen the meridians for the second time, it is simply not feasible, because at that time, Renault's meridians of levels 1 to 5 already have his own spirit. Jason's spiritual power still wants to enter. The conflict between the spiritual powers alone is enough to make Renault explode and die. Before widening Renault's meridians, Jason had not thought about letting a powerful person, such as Leo, widen Renault's meridians for him. However, there is a prerequisite for widening the meridians, that is, the spiritual power in the widener's body is incompatible with the being. There must be no conflict during the expansion, and the spiritual power of the expander must contain the component of bodybuilding spiritual liquid, so as to prevent the meridians of the person being expanded from being destroyed. In this world, Jason is the only one who knows that his spiritual power possesses bodybuilding spiritual liquid. This is also a helpless move, and Jason, who was not a spiritual master in his previous life, did not expect that his spiritual power would be the resistance in Renault's body would be so great. What should I do? Is it really true that my father can only have the strength of a 5th-level sect spirit master for the rest of his life? Jason's thoughts were running as fast as lightning, and thousands of thoughts and methods flashed through his mind. No, there is no word give up in my belief. Break it. Break it. Break it, Jason roared, running his spiritual power violently and for a long time, causing damage to the meridians in his body and causing extreme pain, but Jason didn't feel anything at all. Jason's spiritual power continuously impacted the entrance of Reno's 6th level meridian. With each impact, the entrance of the 6th level meridian was like a chasm, blocking Jason's spiritual power without any loosening. The massive consumption of spiritual power and the damage to the meridians left Jason's body in a state of severe collapse. The injuries Jason suffered at this moment were a bit more serious than the old Reno, who had all the meridians in his body broken and rebuilt. Just when Jason continued to work hard, his consciousness gradually blurred, and there was so much pain in every part of his body that he almost fainted, and almost failed. Suddenly a strange power suddenly emerged from Jason's body. This power emerged so suddenly that Jason didn't even notice it at first. A look of astonishment appeared on Jason's face. He had already recognized that this power was the one that helped him break through the 1st level barrier when he was promoted to a 1st level spiritual disciple. This power is also the reason why he came to the Todd family to find out the origin of the family. After that force appeared in Jason's body, without Jason's control, it followed Jason's arm and entered Reno's body. Wherever it went, the spiritual power that Jason originally entered into Reno's body all of them were like sheep seeing a tiger, and they fled away in fear. After that strange force circled the low-level meridians in Reno's body, it slowly walked to the entrance of Reno's 6th level meridian, and then gently knocked its head against the entrance of the 6th level meridian. The entrance barrier to the 6th order meridian, which was originally difficult to move no matter how hard Jason tried, was easily broken open like a thin piece of paper by the strange force, and then that weird power swaggered into Reno's 6th level meridians. 18 years ago, the meridians in Reno's body, which were completely disabled, no longer exist. A large amount of waste residue has long blocked up Reno's 6th order meridians. If Jason were to open up, even Reno's 6th order meridians would be blocked. Jason, who couldn't even open the entrance, didn't know how much effort he would have to spend. But after that weird power entered Reno's 6th order meridians, it was like a red-hot iron rod inserted into solidified paraffin. The residue in those crippled meridians quickly melted away. In just a moment, that weird power he had already walked around the 6th level meridians in Reno's body and opened up every corner of the meridians. Even when it reached the entrance of the 7th order meridian, that strange force lightly touched the barrier of the entrance of the 7th order meridian. Countless people suddenly appeared on the entrance of the 7th order meridian, which was originally as solid as a steel gate. There are cracks and chips, and it seems like they will completely fall apart with just the slightest touch again. After doing all this strange force returned to Jason's body along the previous route. After running in Jason's body for 2 rounds, it disappeared again. "Father, please drink this bottle of elixir, quickly." After the strange power disappeared, Jason quickly took out the bottle of Spirit Master potion that he had prepared with the 6th order metallic spiritual core added to it, and put it into Reno's hands. Reno took the Spirit Master potion. He believed in Jason and drank it without saying a word. Then he closed his eyes and started practicing there. After seeing Reno practicing with his eyes closed, Jason took a long breath and wiped the sweat from his forehead with his sleeves. In Jason's plan, opening up the blocked meridians all over Reno's body is only the first step. The second step is to let Reno drink this bottle of elixir that contains all the spiritual power of a 6th order metallic spiritual core. He has just opened up the meridians all over his body. At this time, Reno's spiritual energy in his body is empty. If Reno is allowed to practice again, he doesn't know how much time and energy it will take to return to the level of 18 years ago. After taking this spiritual potion, Reno can restore his strength to his original state in a very short period of time as long as he absorbs all the metallic spiritual power in the spiritual potion, and Jason also added a lot of it to the spiritual potion. Other materials can repair Renault's newly widened and rebuilt meridians more firmly. After seeing his father completely immersed in the practice, Jason stood up. Only then did he think of sensing the strange power in his body. If it hadn't been for the sudden strange power, he might have broadened Renault's meridians this time. The mission is about to end in failure. In Jason's spiritual perception, the spiritual power in his body at this moment appears to be quite thin due to the previous heavy consumption. However, no matter how Jason's spiritual consciousness searches in the meridians, he cannot find the strange power that appeared out of thin air before. Hey, what's going on? Jason frowned. In Jason's memory, this was the second time this strange power appeared. The first time he was tortured in the Talon City prosecutor's office. After the strange power appeared, Jason's injured body was instantly healed. Moreover, every time he was tortured, the spiritual power in Jason's body would increase. It increased by 1 point, which was extremely weird. Then, after Jason failed to attack the first-level spiritual disciple, the weird power directly blasted Jason's first-level meridian barrier, allowing Jason to advance to the first level. This is the second time. Every time this strange power appears mysteriously and then disappears mysteriously without any warning, but these 2 times have one thing in common, that is, Jason is seriously injured, and after the mysterious power appeared, Jason's previously damaged meridians had almost all been restored. When the mysterious power passed through Renault's meridians, the meridians that had just been opened by Renault also healed quickly. Its effect was much more powerful than the bodybuilding liquid, which surprised Jason. Jason sensed it countless times with his spiritual sense, but couldn't find where the strange power was hidden. Jason felt the thin spiritual power in his body, sat down cross-legged in a corner of the room, circulated the spiritual power in his body, and absorbed free spirit elements in the air. Time passed minute by minute, and he didn't know how long it took. Just when Jason felt that all the depleted spiritual energy in his body was almost fully restored, his keen perception, spreading in the air, suddenly felt the sound coming from in front of him. There was an extremely huge wave of spiritual power. This huge spiritual power was like a row of huge waves, rushing towards Jason. The powerful spiritual power enveloped Jason and made him breathless. In the world of perception, between the vast sky and the earth, the whole world was dark. Jason felt like a small boat in the middle of the sea, constantly swaying and drifting under the attack of the storm, and could be instantly destroyed by the huge waves at any time. Jason, who was practicing cross-legged there, suddenly opened his eyes and saw that the source of the huge spiritual power was his father Renault sitting in a barrel not far from him. At this moment, Renault's body was shaking, his face was in pain, and waves of overwhelming spiritual power were like waves, spreading out around Renault's body as the center. The entire room was filled with violent spiritual elements. The spiritual elements within a radius of 100 meters formed a huge vortex, rushing towards Renault in the center of the vortex, and were then absorbed into his body by Renault. What's going on? There was a trace of surprise on Jason's face. In his plan, when Renault, who was originally a 6th-level spiritual master, absorbed the spiritual potion, this would not happen. If you are in a bad state, you will only wake up peacefully. Just when Jason was extremely surprised, golden mesh lines suddenly covered Renault's body, and then Renault's entire body burst into an extremely huge golden light, and the whole person actually levitated out of thin air. At the same time, the spiritual masters in the entire Todd family mansion who had reached the level of 5th-level sect spiritual masters and above all felt the extremely powerful fluctuation of spiritual power coming from the Jason villa. But Rost, who was originally closing his eyes and recuperating in the remote courtyard at the deepest part of the family mansion, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Jason's courtyard. A ray of light flashed in Rost's eyes. Who is releasing spiritual power? The 6th-level senior spiritual master? No, it's the 7th-level imperial spiritual master? No, could someone come to my Todd family to assassinate family members? Rost's face suddenly became angry. His color changed, his figure swayed slightly, and he disappeared into the house out of thin air. In front of Jason, the golden light on Reno's body continued to converge, and finally it was all absorbed into Reno's body. Reno was suspended in the air and opened his eyes. This 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master? Father has been promoted to the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master? Jason's face showed an extremely surprised look. In Stern Continent, a 6th level Imperial Spiritual Master can stay in the air for a period of time. And if Reno wanted to float quietly in the air like he was at this moment, only a 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master could do it. In fact, the 6th level metallic spiritual core that Nexant gave Jason was obtained from a 6th level peak spiritual beast. Generally speaking, spiritual beasts of the same level are half a point stronger than humans of the same level, which contains the spiritual power of Reno is also much greater. The bottle of spiritual potion prepared by Jason for Reno contains the spiritual power of an entire 6th order of metallic spiritual core. After transformation, it is enough to increase the spiritual energy in Reno's body to the peak of 6th order. In addition to the 6th level metallic spirit core, Jason also added a large amount of other materials to the spirit potion, including half of the energy of the violent spirit fruit. Such powerful energy, after being completely absorbed by Reno, immediately made Reno the spiritual power in the body reached an unbearable height, and the powerful 6th level peak spiritual power directly impacted the entrance to Reno's 7th level meridian regardless of the cost. If that's the case, it's nothing. After all, the 6th level and the 7th level are not just as simple as one level difference, but also the difference between middle level and high level spiritual masters. If you want to break through, it's extremely difficult. Difficulties are not something that Reno can overcome now. But what Jason and Reno didn't expect was that the mysterious power in Jason's body not only dredged up the entire 6th order meridians in Reno's body, but also opened a gap in the barrier at the entrance of Reno's 7th order meridians. Under the fierce bombardment of the 6th order peak spiritual power in Reno's body, the 7th order meridian barrier that should have been rock solid was actually disintegrated inch by the extremely huge 6th order peak spiritual power, allowing Reno to break through to the 7th order emperor in one fell swoop. The realm of the spiritual master. This was something Jason never expected. Master, why come to my Todd family? Please come out and see me. At this moment, a loud voice suddenly came from the sky above Jason's yard, like rumbling thunder, resounding throughout the heaven and earth. In the air outside the courtyard, Rost was dressed in a blue robe, with his beard and hair flying in the wind. He was extremely serious, and his extremely powerful spiritual power covered the sky like roaring waves, flowing and surging in the air. For a moment, even the scorching sun seemed to be there. It lost its color in an instant. Haha! Reno roared, and he rose into the sky. The powerful golden light instantly condensed into a huge sword, which seemed to pierce the sky, and stabbed towards Rost with rumbling thunder. Huh! Rost snorted coldly, without any intention of evading. Countless green dots in the air instantly gathered into a huge shield and blocked it in front of Rost. On the surface of the giant shield, there were countless spiritual seals and talismans. It exudes a misty green light, flowing endlessly, and is full of simple atmosphere. Boom! The golden sword and the green shield bombarded each other, canceling each other out. The powerful spiritual power splashed in all directions, and several fragments of spiritual power bombarded the rockery in Jason's yard. The rockery suddenly turned into countless pieces. Rock fragments, smoke and dust. Uncle! Reno was suspended in midair, with a smile on his face and a slight bow. He swept away all the vicissitudes of life and decadence before, and the dead tree was still growing with spring. The whole person was full of confidence. With every gesture, he seemed to be in control of the sky and twisting the universe. Although Rost was an intermediate imperial spiritual master, and Reno had just advanced to the 7th level, among the 5 elements, Jean Kimu, with the previous testing blow, the two were evenly matched, with no winner or loser. Reno, why is it you? You're not. Rost's face showed an extremely shocked look. Rost had many speculations about the 7th-level strongman who suddenly appeared in his family's mansion. He was an enemy of the family and a friend of Jason, but never thought it would be Renaud. This Renaud, what on earth is going on? Rost's mind was filled with confusion, and he followed Renaud into the yard. What's going on? What's going on? At this moment, a burst of noise suddenly came from outside Jason's yard. Countless family guards heard Rost's previous roar in midair and the previous battle. After the loud noise, everyone rushed here. Third uncle, what happened? Some first and second generation disciples in the family also rushed over at this moment, including Karen and others. You all stand down. No one is allowed to step into the courtyard without my instructions. Rost, who followed Renaud in the courtyard, frowned and shouted loudly to the outside of the courtyard. Yes. Callan and others responded in unison from outside the yard. 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master, 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master, I actually became a 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master. In the courtyard, Renaud looked at his hands with great excitement, the corners of his mouth trembled, and tears shone in his eyes. It has been 18 years. For a moment, Renaud thought of his life in the past 18 years. Ever since he was deprived of his strength by the 8th-level Imperial Spiritual Master of the Daos family 18 years ago and became a useless person, Renaud has been in pain all the time. He hated that he had no strength and could not keep Yulia. He hated why he was so useless. His family was forced to expel him, and his wife was taken away by others, but he had nothing to do. That kind of pain made Renaud how crazy. If it weren't for Jason's existence, Renaud had to complete the last thing Yulia entrusted him with when she left, and raise her and his own flesh and blood. I'm afraid Renaud would no longer be in this world at this moment. Despite this, in the first few years, Renaud would cry every day. He could only fall asleep by being drunk. He would always stand quietly outside at night, looking towards the east of the mainland. That was the direction of the Cairo Empire, where his most beloved woman lived. Gradually, the flowing time consumed his consciousness, and the years carved deep marks on his temples. Renaud's heart was entirely focused on Jason. As long as Jason could become a 6th-level spiritual being, master, then Jason has hope of returning to the family. However, when it was determined that Jason's body contained more than 50% of his family's blood, his last hope was shattered. Fate was so cruel that all the misfortunes were placed on this man. The huge pain and the shattered hope ruthlessly defeated Renaud, the once steely man. But now Renaud sobbed silently, and tears flowed down his wrinkled and grooved cheeks like a flood. He never thought that one day he would regain his strength, and even break through to the 7th level in one fell swoop. The level of an Imperial Spiritual Master. The 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master is a true high-level professional spiritual master. It is the strongest combat power of a kingdom. Even in the 4 major empires on the mainland, the 7th level Imperial Spiritual Master can have his own place. Yulia, have you seen it? Our son has grown up, and he is still so good. Yulia, have you seen it? Renaud choked, looking blankly towards the east of the continent, and the corner of his mouth murmured. For a time all kinds of emotions were flowing in his heart, stirring endlessly. Father Jason stood at the door of the house, looking at the crying Renaud, and ripples arose in his heart. Jason, who had been getting along with Renaud these days, had already regarded Renaud as himself in his heart. A true father. Renaud, after hearing Renaud's muttering, Rost couldn't help but let out a long sigh, with a complicated look on his face. Renaud, are you willing to return to the family? After a while, Rost, whose expression changed many times, thought about it for a long time and asked. He did not ask how Renaud regained his strength like he did when he lost his composure before. Instead, he asked the question he wanted to know. After saying this, he couldn't help but feel a little uneasy in his heart. A powerful man at the level of an Imperial Spiritual Master can be said to be an eternal guarantee for a large family in the kingdom like the Todd family. Jason's face showed a hint of joy. His original plan was to let his father return to the family after he was able. Now that his father has regained his strength, listening to Rost's words, it was obvious that he agreed to his father's return. It's time for the family. Return to the family? Renaud stood for a moment, sighed, and then shook his head and said, with Jason in the family for me, everything will be fine. Rost's face couldn't help but dim, and he sighed, Renaud, do you still hate the family for what happened back then? The family had no choice but to do so. In a big family like the Todd family, some people may be hostile to each other because of personal interests, but the vast majority of the clan members in the family, in the face of interests, there will still be incomparable unity. When the powerful Daos family came, although many people were full of resentment towards Renaud, who attracted the Daos family, no one in the family's senior leadership was really willing to put their own family at risk. The talented disciple was expelled and watched helplessly as his enemy used up all his skills. Father, Jason also had a look of surprise on his face. He originally thought his father would agree immediately. Although Jason himself didn't care much about the Todd family and didn't have much sense of belonging, he knew in his heart how nostalgic his father was for this family. I'm afraid in his heart, the family's profits are more important than his own life, but how could he, uncle? Renaud shook his head and said, I have never resented the family, never. For the family, I only feel guilty, but you don't worry, if the family is in trouble in the future, I will never stand by and watch. Alas. Rost sighed, didn't say anything, just nodded, with a trace of tiredness on his face, and then his whole body rose, glanced at Jason and Renaud below, turned around and drifted towards his own courtyard. Because you brought disaster to the family, we expelled you, and the family declined because of it. Now if the family wants to survive in the kingdom forever, it still needs you and Jason. Is this God's will? The cycle of heaven, is there a certain doom in the dark? Rost's eyes flashed with light, and his heart was not at peace. He knew deeply that although the kingdom had been suppressing the family over the years and the family's power was gradually weakening, the Todd family had always stood firm in the kingdom of Orlando and remained strong. It is one of the three major families in the kingdom, precisely because of him, a 7th-level intermediate imperial spiritual master. For a big family, wealth, power are not the most important. Only those who truly have power over the world can they not be replaced and survive forever. This is also why the lineage of Elder Claude, who initially supported Abel, was far more powerful than Leo's lineage, but in the end, it was Leo who became the leader of the clan. It was precisely because Leo was the only one in the family besides him. The strongest person, the most outstanding person of the second generation in the family, a 6th-level senior spiritual master, is enough to overwhelm all. Well, although Renaud doesn't want to return to the family, in the eyes of outsiders, he will always be a member of our Todd family. Even if I am no longer here, Leo has not yet broken through to the 7th-level Imperial Spirit Master. With Renaud here, there is no need to worry that the family will be completely destroyed, and there is still that guy Jason here. Rost was thinking in his heart, but there was a wry smile on his face. I am afraid that no one would have thought that this year, more than 10 years later, the family would be prosperous. The key is that it actually comes from Renaud, a tribesman who was expelled from the family, right? No, if it hadn't happened that year, I'm afraid the family patriarch wouldn't have had the chance to be Leo, but he would have been hailed as the #1 genius among the second generation. Renaud. Father, why did you refuse just now? After Rost left, Jason couldn't help but stepped forward and asked in confusion. Haha, maybe returning to the family is not the most important thing to me. Renaud looked at Jason, who had regained his strength, with a sigh on his face, with a trace of kindness on his face. Before regaining his strength, Renaud had thought that the first thing he would do when he regained his strength was to return to his family. But when he really regained his strength, he discovered that there were other more powerful things in this world. Wait for him to do the important things. Yulia, after I have settled our children, I will definitely come to find you, even if I die, I will not hesitate. Renaud secretly swore in his heart, extremely determined. At this time, the sky was approaching evening. A whole day had passed from the time he opened up the meridians for Renaud to the time when Renaud absorbed the spiritual potion and became a 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master. During this day, Jason was not opening up the meridians for Renaud, even though he was practicing there. Even though Jason was extremely strong, he couldn't help but feel a little tired at this moment. After instructing Claire and the others to clean the previous room, before Jason could return to his room, Wayne jumped out of nowhere. "That Jason, ahem, please treat me some time." At this moment, Wayne had a smile on his face, like a servant trying to please his master. He could not tell that he was an 8th-level Imperial Spiritual Master. Wayne also saw the shocking changes in the yard before. After staying with Jason in the Todd family for such a long time, Wayne also knew something about Jason's father Reno. Jason has been busy these days. Wayne, he was also quite curious, wondering what Jason was up to. But when he was in his room just now, he couldn't help but be shocked after seeing the battle between Renaud and Rost. He never expected that Jason could even recover the strength of a person like Renaud who had completely lost his meridians. In Stern Continent, with the current spiritual technology, it can be said that it is completely impossible to recover the strength of Renaud in a situation like this, but Jason did it. For Wayne, this is even better than Jason's cure of Lou, the eldest prince's illness, which no doctor could cure, was even more shocking. One can only show that Rudolph is not as good as Jason in treating the eldest prince's illness, but the other almost breaks the tradition of Stern Continent and can be called a miracle. Wayne's heart became excited again. "Don't worry, I'll help you get it done in a few days." A somewhat tired Jason waved to Wayne and walked into his room. In fact, even if Wayne didn't remind him, Jason himself had already figured out a way, but he had been thinking about restoring his father's strength these days, so he couldn't take action. After receiving Jason's promise, Wayne stood at the door of Jason's room with a smile on his face, and then went back extremely excited. In the office of Oliver Auction House in Orlando City. "What? Gave it to me?" Barton looked at Jason standing in front of him in surprise. "You said this bottle of elixir was a gift to me. Does it have any effect?" Looking at the Oliver Auction House, the large-scale auction was approaching. Yenji was just about to send an invitation to Jason when she heard from her subordinates that Jason was coming to see him, so Yenji and Barton immediately received Jason in the office. What Yenji didn't expect was that as soon as Jason came in, he directly placed 2 bottles of light blue elixir on his desk. One bottle was entrusted to the auction house for auction, and the other bottle was said to be given to Barton. This made Barton very confused. Although he was a senior spiritual master, he didn't know much about spiritual potions, so he didn't know what the 2 bottles of spiritual potions placed in front of him had. Jason nodded and said, "These 2 bottles of spiritual potion are the spiritual potion that I prepared from the violent spirit fruit a few days ago. If it weren't for Brother Barton, I might not be able to get this violent spirit fruit. Now that I have prepared it, the Spirit Master potion came out, and you happen to need it again, Brother Barton, so naturally you have to give him a bottle." Jason's face was extremely calm, and half of the violent spirit fruit was mixed into the bottle that helped his father regain his strength. The remaining half of the potion was mixed into a bottle of Spirit Master potion, and that bottle of high-concentration Spirit Master potion was later diluted by Jason into 5 bottles, each of which had the effect of the violent spirit fruit. Barton's face suddenly showed great surprise, and he said eagerly, "Since this Spirit Master potion is prepared with violent spirit fruit, does it mean that this Spirit Master potion has the effect of violent spirit fruit?" "Yes, Brother Barton, this spirit, the Supreme Potion can also allow any spiritual master below the 6th level Senior Supreme Spirit Master to advance to 1 level in a short period of time, which is the same as the violent spirit fruit," Jason said with a smile on his face. A smile suddenly appeared on Barton's face. Suddenly, Barton's face darkened again as if he thought of something. "It's a pity that the side effects of this violent spirit fruit are too great. Once taken, the level will stagnate, and it will never be possible again." Suanjin, if I take it, I'm afraid I will only be a low-level spiritual master for the rest of my life, but despite this, Master Jason, I still want to thank you. Barton understood the value of this spiritual master potion in his heart, but it was a pity that the side effects were too great. Although Barton has been stuck as a senior spiritual master for some years now, he is confident that he can break through to become a spiritual master in the future. If it doesn't work by then, it won't be too late to take this spiritual master potion. Haha. Jason couldn't help laughing. Brother Barton, don't worry, the spirit master potion I prepared not only has all the effects of the violent spirit fruit, but also has none of the side effects of the violent spirit fruit. There is no need to worry that after taking it, you will never be able to advance in the future. Master Jason, are you telling the truth? Barton said in disbelief, his face suddenly filled with excitement. Haha, Brother Barton, can I still lie to you? This Barton and Yenji present had a look of shock on their faces, while Wayne, who came in with Jason, had a look on his face at this moment. He also showed a hint of surprise. As an 8th-level Imperial Spiritual Master, he naturally knew something about the violent spirit fruit, but in his impression, although the violent spirit fruit was extremely effective, it had serious side effects, so a spiritual master who truly had confidence in himself would not take it. Yes, only those spiritual masters who could never advance to the next level would take the risk to take it. But according to Jason's words, the spirit master potion he prepared had no side effects at all. How is this possible? Miss Yenji, I am here this time because I need your help with something. Regardless of Yenji and the other's surprise, Jason took out a list of materials from his body. I will use these materials in the near future. If you're Oliver Auction House, if you have any, please prepare it for me. The cost of the materials will be deducted from the bottle of Lingzuan potion given to you. Yenji took the materials list, looked at it carefully, then nodded and said, Our Oliver Auction House's office in the Royal City has almost all of the materials here. Only the Stone of Holy Light is relatively rare. However, our Oliver Auction House can also find it, but I'm afraid it will take 2 days. Well, then. When the materials are ready, just send them to me. Wayne on the side was extremely excited. When he was pulled out by Jason this morning, Jason told him that he was looking for someone who could lift the curse. The materials are gone. After Jason chatted with Yenji and the others for a while, he left the Oliver Auction House. After sending Jason away, Yenji returned to her office, looked at the 2 bottles of Spirit Master Potion on the table, and said seriously, Barton, go and invite Master Boomer. A moment later, in Barton's under the guidance, an old man with a gray beard walked into Yenji's office. Haha, Miss Yenji, I wonder if you called the old man here, what's the matter? Boomer smiled as soon as he entered the door. This Boomer is a 4th-level senior elixir master. After being recruited by the Oliver family, he joined the Oliver family. He has a very high status in the Oliver family. This time he came here specifically because of the auction in the Royal City. Master Boomer, I have 2 bottles of elixir here, and I want you to come and identify them. Oh? Spirit potion? Boomer spotted the 2 bottles of light blue spirit potion on Yenji's desk at a glance, and immediately stepped forward, sensing the spirit potion carefully with his spiritual sense. Huh? As soon as this servant came into contact, Boomer frowned, with a hint of surprise in his eyes, and then a shocked look appeared on his face. How is it? Master Boomer, is there any result? Looking at Boomer, Yenji said nervously. Miss Yenji, please wait a moment. Boomer looked serious, took out a silver needle from his body, dipped it in the light blue spirit master potion, then felt it for a moment again, and finally, used the needle tip again. He touched the tip of his tongue and felt it carefully. On the side, Yenji and Barton looked at Boomer nervously, waiting for his test results. The look of shock on Boomer's face became more and more intense, his eyes burst out with a soul-stirring light, and he said with an unbelievable look, Miss Yenji, you 2 bottles of spiritual potion, where did you find it? The level of this elixir is far higher than my elixir level. It is at least a 6th level elixir. Master Boomer, what are the effects of these 2 bottles of elixir? Boomer pondered for a long time, and then said, Miss Yanji, this elixir contains an extremely violent power. According to my estimation, it should be an elixir used to increase the level of a spiritual master. As for what effect it has and what it can do with my current strength, I can't fully understand it, but what is certain is that this elixir has a certain effect on at least the 6th level elixir master. Master Boomer, I don't know this. Does the elixir have any side effects? Yanji asked again. Side effects? Boomer shook his head and said, Miss Yanji, the violent force in this elixir is extremely pure. According to my experience, there should not be any side effects. Miss Yanji, I don't know what this elixir is called. Name? Spirit Master Potion. Spirit Master Potion, Spirit Master Potion? Boomer tried his best to think, but there was no impression in his mind. He couldn't help sighing and praised, This is the best I have ever seen in my life. The highest level elixir, the person who prepared these 2 bottles of elixir is definitely a master of elixir. Alas, if I can get a glimpse of such a realm in my lifetime, I will have no regrets in this life. After sending Boomer away, Yanji, in the office, Barton and I looked at each other. Master Boomer's previous appraisal was completely consistent with the efficacy mentioned by Jason. It's not that they don't believe Jason, but they feel extremely shocked and unbelievable. Even now, the 2 of them still have a dreamy feeling. The elixir master who can prepare the 6th level elixir is a famous figure even in the 4 major empires on the mainland. However, Jason, a young man who is not yet 20 years old, has done it. This makes Yanji, a well-informed young lady, couldn't help but feel that her heart was unbearable. Barton, please take this bottle of spiritual potion back. Yanji put one of the bottles of spiritual potion into Barton's hand. Miss, this after the ecstasy, the shocked Barton also knew the value of the elixir in his hand. At this moment, he couldn't help but feel extremely heavy. Haha, Master Jason gave this to you, just keep it well. I would like to congratulate our family on having another 6th level spiritual master. Yanji laughed out loud. Yanji and Barton looked at each other and couldn't help but remain silent. When she first met Jason, it was just because Oliver Auction House needed a rejuvenation potion, and then she was introduced by Saha and Bisfam. However, because Yanji herself admired Jason, in her subsequent contact with Jason, they all behaved extremely respectfully and friendly, and did not do anything perfunctory at all, and responded to every request. But he didn't expect that in just half a year, Jason would give him so many shocks and surprises. Being able to establish a relationship with such a master of elixirs, I am afraid that the family will have a lot of conveniences in the future, and Yanji couldn't help but feel happy. Not to mention Yanji and Barton were shocked in the auction house, but Jason and Wayne were walking slowly on the road in the royal city of Colton. Because the large-scale auction of Oliver Auction House will be held in the royal city in the next 2 days, there are many pedestrians in the royal city at this moment, many of whom are rich people and nobles coming from all over the kingdom. In the long time since he came to the royal city, Jason had hardly gone out for shopping. He had been staying in the family to practice and prepare elixirs. For Jason, shopping was a waste of time. He couldn't figure it out. How come so many people like it? Wayne followed Jason step by step. From his contact with Jason these days, he also understood that Jason was a man of few words. Huh? Just when the 2 of them walked into an alley, Jason, who was walking in front, suddenly tightened his muscles. A hint of murderous intent was like a tiger shark smelling blood in the sea. It came from all over the place with a cold indifference, and its target was the small alley where Jason was. Jason's brows couldn't help but frown. There is a killer. Huh? Jason, something is wrong here, there is an ambush. At this time, Wayne, who had experienced many battles, also felt that the surrounding atmosphere was abnormal, and whispered. Boom. Just when Jason stopped and Wayne had just finished speaking, a huge sound suddenly sounded from both sides, and the two wooden doors that were originally closed on both sides of the street suddenly burst open. Among the wood chips flying all over the sky, two hooded figures suddenly shot like two arrows from the string, shooting at Jason and Wayne in the middle of the road, with a violent whistling sound in the air. Two sharp long swords, with a cold edge, dazzled the eyes, and the cold light was exposed. On the tips of the two long swords, a sword light several feet long trembled. The assassins were actually two fourth-level heavenly spirit masters. "No, let's go." Wayne pushed Jason hard. Although his strength was completely gone, his warrior instincts were still there. He was once an 8th-level Emperor spiritual master, and his reaction to an attack was even worse than Jason wants to come quickly. Under Wayne's rapid push, two sword beams barely brushed past the two of them, and the cold sword edge cut off a piece of Jason's sleeve with a hint of chill. The two assassins missed a single blow. After landing, they turned around suddenly, their sword lights lit up again, and they stabbed Jason in the head one after another. The dazzling swords had a cold edge, and they struck like lightning. "Has arrived in front of Jason. The one who assassinated me?" Jason's heart froze, and he used his sneaky step instantly, his figure blurred, and he flashed to the side. "Call out." At this moment, suddenly, a sharp scream sounded in the air, and a crescent-shaped white sword light, with a violent sound of breaking through the air, shot from a distance towards the dodging person like lightning. Jason. A figure, like a huge bat, floated down from a roof not far away. Jianmeng, a 5th-level sect spiritual master. Looking at the lightning-like sword light, Jason's pupils shrank to the size of a needle tip in an instant. Boom! At the moment when the sword light was about to hit Jason, a figure suddenly stood in front of Jason, and a cloud of blood bloomed in the air, like cherry blossoms falling in the wind, which was extremely poignant. "Jason, let's go." Wayne spat out a mouthful of blood. On his chest, a huge gap appeared there, with bones visible, and blood kept coming out like a fountain. Jason didn't respond. He took out several bottles of elixir from his body and poured them all into his mouth like lightning. In this situation, if he was alone, Jason would definitely turn around and run away, but if he couldn't let him give up Wayne. It had nothing to do with faith. "Ah!" Jason let out a fierce roar. In his body, the effect of a large amount of medicine was released instantly. The most powerful medicine came to Jason quickly after entering Jason's body. The entrance to the third-order meridian impacted Jason's third-order meridian, and another violent wave of medicinal power followed closely behind, also violently impacting Jason's third-order meridian. The spiritual power of the high-level spiritual warrior that was originally running rapidly in Jason's second-level meridians also began to boil at the same time, rushing fiercely towards the entrance of the third-level meridians. The three forces merged together, and in just one round, Jason's body, the third-level meridian barrier, suddenly collapsed, and a large amount of spiritual power flowed into Jason's third-level meridians like a river returning to the sea. Countless powerful medicinal powers instantly dispersed in Jason's body, improving Jason's strength. The spiritual power in Jason's body instantly reached the third-level intermediate level, and was even infinitely close to the third-level advanced level. The powerful third-level spiritual master washed Jason's meridians and bones, and Jason's spiritual consciousness became extremely powerful in an instant. This rapid improvement and strengthening gave Jason a feeling of sweeping everything, and his whole body was filled with energy. The feeling of power. A 6th-grade high-grade spirit master potion. A 3rd-level mid-grade violent potion. A 3rd-level top-grade physical strength potion. A 4th-level mid-grade spiritual awareness enhancement potion. In the previous moment, Jason had taken all the elixirs that were available to him. In fact, such hasty consumption of elixirs would cause great damage to the body of the spiritual master, and even some medicinal. The conflict would have some sequelae, but at this moment, Jason couldn't care less about it. Between life and death, there is no room for hesitation. Under the attack of a fifth-level sect spiritual master and two heavenly spiritual masters, he had no way out. In fact, in Jason's original plan, the Spirit Master potion was to be taken when he was at a higher level, at least when he was promoted from the third level to the fourth level. After all, in this world, it can last forever. There are too few elixirs that can improve a person's level without failure and without any side effects. Most elixirs can only increase the level of a spiritual master in a short period of time, while others can increase the success rate of a spiritual master's promotion. There are too few elixirs like the Spirit Master elixir that will definitely lead to promotion after taking them, and most of the elixirs are extremely difficult to prepare and the materials are extremely precious. Even Jason, who was a 9th-level elixir Saint Master in his previous life, does not always have these elixirs if he wants. Bring out the Spirit Master potion. Whoa! Jason took the spiritual potion and was promoted to the 3rd-level spiritual master in just an instant. The two heavenly spiritual masters had already rushed towards him again. The sword light in the sky swept down like an overwhelming wave. Jason's breathing became extremely depressed in an instant, and his whole person was oppressed by extremely powerful spiritual power. How strong is a 4th-level heavenly spirit master? This can be seen from the leader of the Blade Adventurer team, Lin Yen, a 4th-level low-level spiritual master. However, Jason did not retreat this time. This was not only because he knew that if he did not deal with the two heavenly spirit masters in front of him, when the sect spiritual master caught up, it would be difficult for the three of them to survive, but also because with the improvement of his strength, he has found a trace of the past. Although Jason had no spiritual consciousness in his previous life, he had a strong mind and was not afraid of difficulties. He found his own way. After pioneering the technology of spiritual medicine, he never encountered any setbacks and any difficulties were overcome one by one with his firm heart. Marched forward bravely, passed the test, and became the #1 elixir master in the mainland at the age of only 27, a 9th-level elixir master. Jason's achievements in his previous life can be said to be unprecedented, rare in the world, unprecedented, dominating the world, standing on the top of all living beings, looking down on the world. Many people believe that although spiritual medicine masters are noble, when faced with difficulties, their hearts are not as strong as those of spiritual masters who have been fighting on the battlefield all year round and facing life and death. Actually not. The enemies of spiritual masters are other spiritual masters and powerful spiritual beasts, while the enemies of spiritual medicine masters are spiritual medicines. The high-level spiritual medicines are like mountains and powerful enemies. Spiritual medicine masters fighting among them, facing one's own heart, and even some spiritual potions are far more dangerous than powerful spiritual beasts. There is a saying that goes well. A spiritual master who does not have a strong heart will not become a powerful spiritual master. The same is true for spiritual medicine masters. A spiritual medicine master who does not have a strong heart will not become a powerful spiritual medicine master. Only the truly strong can stand at the top of the pyramid. This has been true for any profession since ancient times. Facing the combined attacks of the two heavenly spirit masters, Jason suddenly opened his eyes wide. Buzz, a huge wave of spiritual power descended in the alley, and thousands of golden rays of light shot out from Jason's body. Jason's head rose up and floated behind Jason's head. Golden light shines on Jason's body, turning Jason's whole body into a golden color, like a god of war, motionless as a mountain. After seeing Jason's spirit ring, the two heavenly spirit masters instantly split into two groups and attacked Jason separately. It was obvious that they knew Jason's skill. Before the assassination, they had already found out everything about Jason. Soul shock. Jason hummed in his mouth. The eyes of a rushing heavenly spirit master were in vain, and the sword light on the long sword in his hand also dimmed instantly. When he was just a spiritual disciple, Jason could intimidate Lin Yen for a moment. Now that he has reached the 3rd level of spiritual master, it is not difficult for him to intimidate a heavenly spiritual master. It's just that the attack of soul shock is extremely concentrated. If two people get together, they may be hit together. But if they attack separately, Jason can only shock one. Ignoring the attack of another heavenly spirit master on the side, Jason's left-hand spiritual power flashed, and he slapped the stunned heavenly spirit master's sword spine with a palm. At the same time, the second spiritual ring behind his head shook in vain, and within his body, the spiritual power surged like an angry wave in an instant, and he slapped the spiritual master's chest with his right hand. Fatal blow. The sound of countless bones shattering came. The heavenly spirit master came back from the shock of his soul. All the bones in his chest were shattered. He roared and flew backwards, hitting the wall on the side of the street. Above the body, rocks shattered and blood splattered. Another heavenly spirit master was extremely miserable when he saw his companion being struck out by Jason's palm. However, his extremely cold eyes did not waver at all. His long sword shook continuously. As Jason tried his best to avoid it, he stabbed him with the sword. Above Jason's right chest. Pfft! A cloud of blood spattered out, and the robe on Jason's chest instantly turned into countless fragments under the force of the sword light, falling gracefully. The long sword with fourth-level spiritual power swallowed the sword light, until it penetrated Jason's right chest. After advancing an inch, he could no longer advance. Jason's two palms simultaneously struggled to clamp the opponent's long sword that pierced his chest. Huh? The heavenly spirit master was shocked. The spiritual energy in his body surged into the long sword in his right hand. He tightened his wrist, and the sword energy was vertical and horizontal on the blade, and the light was flowing out. Pung! A cloud of blood mist burst out from Jason's chest, and the sword suddenly penetrated for a few points again, and then stopped again. Jason's eyes were red, and his tongue was exploding like spring thunder. The spiritual ring behind his head trembled, and an invisible soul wave sank directly into the body of the spiritual master in front of him. The spiritual master's eyes suddenly lost their luster that day, as if they were in a vegetative state, and the spiritual power instilled in the sword quickly dissipated and retreated. Crack! The long sword that had lost its spiritual energy infusion instantly turned into ordinary fine steel. It was snapped off by Jason's palms, and then another palm struck hard on the chest of the spiritual master in front of him. Boom! The heavenly spirit master came back to his senses from the shock of his soul. Blood spurted out from his mouth, mixed with a large number of blood-black internal organs fragments. With an unbelievable look in his eyes, he fell heavily and flew out. Until his death, he didn't understand why the long sword in his hand, which was imbued with the spiritual power of the heavenly spirit master, could not penetrate Jason's chest. Even a granite wall, several meters thick, would be broken by his hard thrust. It's not even into the handle. He doesn't understand and will never die in peace. How did he know that with Jason's current strength as a spiritual master, his physical strength has reached an extremely terrifying level? The strength of his body alone is comparable to that of a high-level spiritual master, almost an imperial spiritual master. Under the protection of spiritual power, and under the strenuous restraint of Jason's hands, it was naturally difficult for him, a heavenly spirit master, to penetrate. Despite being seriously injured, Jason killed two heavenly spiritual masters moments before the spiritual masters of that sect arrived, demonstrating Jason's meticulous thinking and incomparable courage. Whoosh, whoosh! Just after Jason killed the heavenly spirit master with one palm, two sword energy roared from the front and struck Jason's head and heart. The raging murderous aura made the hair on Jason's body stand upright, and a large number of goosebumps oozed from his body. The spiritual power in his body exploded instantly, and the rocks under his feet cracked instantly, and smoke and dust scattered. Bang! Jason could only avoid the vital point, and the sharp and fierce sword energy struck Jason's chest fiercely. Blood spattered, and a long and narrow wound instantly appeared on Jason's chest. The blood snaked down, and the violent spiritual power was like a tarsal maggot, quickly penetrating into the internal organs, tearing the muscles and meridians in the body, destroying the body. The Zong Spirit Master is no better than the Tian Spirit Master, but his attack is so powerful. Yes, you are a spiritual master, but you killed 2 of my men. Your first spiritual ring should be some kind of spiritual attack. The second spiritual ring seems to be able to enhance the spiritual attack power, but that's it. The sect spiritual master, masked in black cloth, walked slowly over, speaking calmly, his cold eyes like a wolf looking at its prey, directed towards him. Who sent you here? Spiritual power surged in Jason's body, and the power of the bodybuilding liquid in the gravity pendant continued to enter his body, repairing the previously injured body. What should I do? Jason's thoughts began to race. A master at the level of a sect spirit master is enough to be the #1 master of a city in the kingdom of Orlando. This kind of strength can dominate most kingdoms on the mainland. Haha, this is death. Suddenly, the masked sect spiritual master, who spoke calmly, opened his eyes angrily, and the long sword in his hand was radiant. It fell from the sky like a meteor to the ground, and it came down to deal with Jason. This spiritual master actually used the technique of surprise attack. Soul shock. The moment the opponent took action, Jason's attack suddenly launched.